Hi, I'm Calivan and welcome to Bar Better. This series is aimed at newer players and hopes to increase your understanding of the mechanics so you can do a little better in your games. Today we're going to talk about unit efficiency in the early parts of the game. More succinctly put, how to do more with less. Now, the first thing that you'll be told when you make your initial foray into multiplayer games is to constantly build units. This is great advice for a new player, as having lots of units dramatically reduces the chances that you'll be overrun in the opening stages. But there is a catch. At some point, players will be able to build a Tech 2 factory, and those Tech 2 units will easily be able to obliterate Tech 1 units. If your opponent arrives in this position several minutes before you do, then all of those lovely units you have will either be mauled by long-range artillery or blown to smithereens at closer ranges by some big fat plasma shells. But how did your opponent get to Tech 2 so much faster? You held your ground and you didn't leave too many wrecks on the battlefield for them to reclaim. So what gives? Well, the answer is sometimes as simple as they built less forward units than you did. Unless your opponent was specifically trying for a Tech 1 all-in, where they tried to outproduce you and force an early victory, then they probably weren't trying to achieve a force parity. What they were instead trying to do is build the bare minimum they needed to keep you busy, while they spent the rest of their income on building a Tech 2 lab and improving their economy. It's all about efficiency. Your opponent was careful with their resources, thought carefully about the units they needed and managed those units well. Essentially, they did more with less. Before you start sweating nervously, this isn't about precision micro and high APM. We're not talking about winning the World Series here, we're talking about improving above a basic level, and luckily Bar provides us with plenty of things we can do to achieve this. I promise they aren't complicated and they aren't hard to replicate, and that if you give some of them a try, you'll be amazed at the difference they can make. The first and probably the most important lesson: repairing is awesome. Like, really awesome. It doesn't cost metal, it doesn't cost energy, so it's an absolute winner. Using effective repairs at the start of a game is a great way to get ahead. And thankfully, your commander is exceptionally well suited for this task. So here are 3 easy ways to get your repair game on. First is the simplest, the pocket healer. This works best at the start of the game when unit numbers are very low. You make a nice big fat T1 unit, give your commander the guard order and steer him into battle. You'll need to use a little bit of micro to get the most out of it, but this is the early game, so you've probably not got a lot else to do with your time. If you can handle a little bit of clicking, it works well enough to have your commander move between a handful of units, keeping them all topped up as you put the pressure on. You do have to pay attention, as it does put your commander in the danger zone. But the side benefit is if your opponent tries to rush down your unit, then the commander's D-gun can do some real work. This works best on stuff with a decent amount of health, such as the anti-swarm units, but starts to become less effective and far more dangerous when additional units start entering the field. This leads into our second repair method, something I like to call the aid station. You essentially move a couple of units with some repair power to just behind your front line. This can be your commander, resbots, or even some constructors. You then put them on repeat via the action panel and draw a small circle around them to make a repair zone. Anything that enters this zone will now be automatically repaired, and if they leave the zone, the repairers won't chase after them into danger. You can manually move damaged units back into this zone, or just move your whole force back here to top up before your next push. If you want to keep the enemy busy, you can even go a little further. Using the repeat option again, it's quite possible to instruct a bunch of units to move forward towards the enemy line and then back into the repair zone. This works best when the unit has a half-decent range and a good turning speed, as they can nip in, do a bit of damage and then retreat for some healing, all while you focus on something else. It's not going to win you the game all on its own, but it can keep your enemy engaged while you move your focus to another part of the battle. The third option is a mix between the pocket heal and the aid station, and uses the construction turret's high range to keep your units topped up while they defend the front line. You can move your forces forward to apply some pressure and then pull them back a little to get topped up. Because they are somewhere near to the action, the construction turrets are subject to a little threat, So it's sometimes a good idea to build a few wall sections in front of them to block the odd stray rocket. The danger here is not to overcommit to the scheme. Construction turrets cost metal and also cost a big chunk of energy and build power. Their stationary nature makes them very vulnerable to artillery. Their range and high build power gives them a lot of repair potential, but as with any structure, it denies you the option of trading space for time. None of these things are going to win you a game all on their own, but they do allow you to be efficient, and efficiency can certainly help you win a game. For repairs to be the most effective, you also need to reduce incoming damage. You've probably already figured out that Careful Micro allows you to avoid a lot of projectiles, but what if you're not really the Careful Micro type? Again, Bar is here to help, and there are a couple of features that even the most ham-fisted of us can take advantage of. We can use the same repeat function we mentioned earlier to keep our units on the move. We don't need them to go very far, just a small, constant adjustment of our positioning can dramatically reduce the damage from incoming projectiles, whether it be long-range artillery or just some units nipping in and out of range to harass us. You can achieve this by popping on the repeat button, holding shift and then issuing a couple of additional move orders to your bunch of units. I like to effectively make a tiny triangle so that my bots are constantly shifting position. Combine this with some of the repairs and they will be surprisingly resilient. We can supersize this effect with the addition of walls. Like repairs, walls are awesome. They are cheap, require no energy and are very fast to build. You don't even need that many of them. A segment like this with a ... pattern will block a lot of shots. And when combined with our little movements, you'll see a great chunk of incoming damage is mitigated. Add a construction turret and this is a great little setup. And because we're mitigating a lot of damage, we need less turrets. Once again, we're doing more with less. So let's look at some of this in the real world. In this game, I'm playing in the hill position on the map All That Smoulders. This position can be tricky, as the players opposite you have access to a lot more metal spots than you do. It's not good enough to just hold on to the high ground until your backline players are up and running. You need to have sufficient combat power to present a threat of your own. By presenting a threat, you force your direct opponents to spend some of their resources on combat power, slowing down the speed that they can scale their own economy. And if you can look after yourself during the mid-game, then you allow your tech and air players to focus on other parts of the battlefield that may yield a breakthrough. Surviving is good, thriving is better, but this is only achievable if we can be efficient. So let's think about our goals. We need to not die, and we need to present a threat. We don't actually need to be much of a threat, but we at least need to give that impression to our opponent. So we are going to open with a bot lab, some solar collectors, some windmills. Then we're going to put out some ticks because we want some vision. This is all good stuff. We're going to speed up because we don't really care too much about the opening, but we are going to grab 3 pawns in case they try to rush us with some scouts of their own. Then we're going to go ahead and secure our metal. We're going to send one of our construction bots over here to secure this metal and start building some wind turbines. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just start building some units. We've got a Centurion out first. Now we're going to go into production queue. If we look at this production queue, it's a big part of our plan. So we're building 10 combat units and 1 construction bot, and that is on repeat, with factory guard left to the default of on. If each unit takes between 10 and 15 seconds to produce, that means that over a course of 2 minutes, we'll have 10 new combat units, and then the construction bot will come out and it will assist the factory. This means that all we need to do is check back at our base once every couple of minutes to move our construction bots to where we want them. And that's all of the management we need to do in the early game. The first bot that comes out, we can just leave to assist the factory. And when we get another bot, we can send that over here to come and assist this bot building wind turbines. This will mean that our economy will gradually scale, but without too much input from us. This leaves us lots of time to focus on the front line so we can do some efficient plays. So I'm building a couple of sentries. Now sentries are cheap, but they're not free, so you really don't want to build too many of them. And they're not really great for the front line. The problem with them is they're pretty much outranged by all of the very common meta units. Things like lashers, rocket bots, artillery. They're completely outranged and therefore useless. So building a couple of them just back from the front line to pick up any slack is a lot more useful than trying to build a wall of them at the front, as some of these players over here are doing. Now, if this commander will get out of my way, what we're going to do is we're going to come down and we're going to build one more sentry here. This is a bait sentry. Basically, this is going to stop them building a metal extractor here, and they're going to probably send units to come and attack it, and then we can start playing with those units. So what we're going to do is we're going to just make sure we're really efficient here. So we're going to use the fact we've got walls to block some of the shots, and we're going to make sure that our commander does a lot of repairing work. Now, artillery is a problem, but it doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does tend to pick away at you. So what we're going to do, instead of worrying and trying to build vehicles of our own and build up a gauntlet and all that stuff, what we're going to do is we're just going to build a big load of dragon's teeth to help block some shots. These dragon's teeth will also mean that it's very difficult for the enemy to rush us down with fast units. It takes a lot of effort to get between all these teeth, and we'll have plenty of time to shoot them with our forces while they're trying to weave in between. So as well as making our own forces tougher, it also buys us time, which allows our teammates to come and help us if we need it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just try and stay alive without spending too much resources on doing so. Now one of the ways we're going to do that is we're going to set this mace on repeat on a move order between these 2 points. Now what this is going to do is just move around a lot. It's going to take a small amount of damage, but it's just going to keep all of their artillery busy, because their artillery isn't being focused fired on anything particular, it's just shooting whatever's in range. This will mean that this player over here thinks, oh, my artillery is putting in loads of work and doing loads of damage, because he won't be able to see any of this. This will be all inside the fog of war. If we say we switch to their view, we can see that they don't really know what's going on behind here. They just know that their artillery is doing really great and firing loads, and it must be doing loads of damage. But of course, we know it's not. This unit is, I think we lost one, but we've moved another one up. And now what we're going to do, rather than building loads of defensive and turrets and things that are very expensive, remember, I mean, these are 1,300 metal each. These are not cheap. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to build a construction turret to repair everything. And we're also building a radar jammer tower, because these are pretty cheap. 240 metal isn't a great deal. They're a lot of energy, but the one thing in this spot is we can make energy easily. We can't make metal quite so easily. So we're going to go with a radar jammer. And it also allows us to do some funky stuff a bit later on. So you see here that he's pushing some vehicles towards now because he's probably frustrated by the fact that he can't really see anything. These vehicles aren't very great at going up a hill. We can move in and attack them head on. Our dragon's teeth will block quite a lot of their incoming fire, but not all of it. But the main thing is all that dies. And even more importantly, we can reclaim all of that dead stuff with our construction turret and make all that back. So our plan involves having an energy storage up and lots of energy in the bank. This is important. And then it's going to involve building another one of these sneaky pits a bit closer to the enemy. Now we've done that, we can start annoying our opponent. If you see, we don't actually have a huge amount of combat power. We've got 14 units. This is 1,770 metals worth of combat power. Over here, he's got a few units, but he's also spent something like 4,000 metal just on static defences. Now, what we're doing instead is we're pouring our metal into a Tech 2 lab so we can get Tech 2 units up. This player hasn't even started that yet, so we're ahead at this point. Now what we're going to do is use our commander to use the capture order on these turrets, because he can do that from stealth and he's within radar jamming range so they can't see him. This will mean that that unit is now ours. It will fire a couple of shots and then die. Now, you could degun this, but that would immediately reveal your commander and it would take a lot of damage. Also, this is annoying. If you're a player and your units are being captured in front of your eyes and you can't do anything, that's annoying. And we like to annoy people because it frustrates them, and frustrated people generally make bad decisions. So we've taken away some of his combat power now. It's not really affecting the front line because he can't push with it, but it is going to make him a bit more worried. It means he's more likely to spend more money on defences, which means he's more likely to not attack us. And we don't want him to attack us because we haven't got really that much. If a big load of stuff comes through, we can utilise our commander to kill it. That's one benefit of all these dragon's teeth. It only costs 216 metal to build all of these, yet they will slow down and clump up the enemy units, making them easy to degun. Now the problem we've got is these big agitators can just pick away at our front line, but we'll have a plan for that soon, because our Tech 2 lab is now done and we are going to bring a sniper up to the front. And now what we can do is just use the sniper to slowly pick away at all of his defences. He won't be able to see the sniper because he's within radar jamming range, so the sniper can just take his time and just pick away at everything that my opponent's got. This is the thing with T2 units, they are incredibly powerful versus T1 things, and this sniper is basically going to make short work of several thousands worth of metal. Now all his agitators are down, we're just free to pick away at the rest of his base, not a problem. Okay, so we'll leave that replay there, but I just wanted to show you how some of these things can work in the real world. By not spending a huge amount of money on defences and units, and by using some cheaper things to our advantage like construction turrets, radar jammers and dragon's teeth, we're in the mid game now. We've got a Tech 2 lab up before our opponent, we've got units coming out, and we present quite a threat, which means he's spending quite a lot of money on defences and other junk which he can't attack us with, which is all good. Okay, so let's wrap this up for today. Rather than simply operating under the mantra of I must build units and defences to fight, try to think about what your short-term goals are and consider if there are more cost-effective ways to achieve them. In the early stages of the game, your economic development options are pretty limited, and you won't be doing much more in this area than building metal extractors and wind turbines. If you can manage to do more with less, then you'll be able to transition into T2 sooner and have a far smoother progression into the mid-game. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if you've got any questions on the subject, leave them in a comment or on the Discord and I'll do my best to reply. If you enjoyed this video, then click the like button, and if you want more of this sort of thing, then subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you back for the next one.